Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel as Mike's Talks and Thoughts here, and today we are back with another TV series review, and this one is a very infamous one that has been talked about all around the TV world, and that is Dahmer here. Now I know my review is coming a little bit late here. The series has been out for a while now, but I have been just caught up with so many other things, so many other shows and work and my personal life as well, which has caused me to not be able to finish it until now, but now I will be coming out with a review for you guys, giving my thoughts on the show. And with all my TV series reviews, if you're new here, I will be going over a synopsis of the show, as well as thoughts on the show, one show recommendation, and as well a tier ranking for the show. And in my description, I will also have a link to my TV database, which shows all of the shows that I've seen, how much seasons I've seen from each show, and the rating and when it's came out, and the creator, a whole bunch of different things if you want to see an in-depth analysis of that, as well as my Patreon to go and support there. So starting out with the synopsis here for Dahmer, this is, of course, a show that follows Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, of course, one of the most notorious serial killers of all time, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, where a lot of his killings happened. And this shows pretty much, of course, like his life and what happened with a lot of the victims. And it's like a documentary in that case, but it's like TV's own take on it. You know, it's not, they change some stuff, but for the most part, they keep to the source material. And it's interesting to see these different actors play these different characters and seeing just everything unfold. And if you're into, of course, serial killers and serial killer murders and all that sort of things, this is definitely going to be one that's right up your alley. If that stuff really turns you off and you're just not interested and you can't deal with blood, gore, or any of the above, this is definitely not going to be a show for you. So yeah, that's basically the quick synopsis on Dahmer here. I will be going into spoilers now for Dahmer. So if you have not seen Dahmer in its entirety, skip until this part into the video and then come back once you have finished all of Dahmer. Yeah, let's talk about Dahmer here. So this was just a very heart-wrenching and emotional show for me. I really felt that, and I think a lot of people around the world felt that because, you know, it's such a touchy topic going through and talking about Dahmer here, one of the craziest serial killers of all time. Like I said, one of the most infamous. We see just a little bit into his life and seeing the struggles, and you know, at first, you know, you sympathize with someone. You're like thinking, why would you sympathize with this person? He is such a evil person and so bad and so cruel. But you know, TV makes you think that way, and then eventually you get to see the victims and you finally snap out of it and you're like, yeah, this guy needs to be put away. He is just absolutely insane and crazy and should not feel any remorse for feeling for him. You know, we should be feeling for the victims here. And I think they do a really great job at keying in on some of the victims here. They don't go full in depth or really show all of them, but one thing I really loved at the end when they talk about what happened and they show each individual victim and showing them, you know, their praise and, you know, remembering them, because that's what they need to do. They need to be remembered. You know, people are going to take away from this that, oh, they're praising Dahmer, or they're just doing this to bank off Dahmer, when it really shouldn't be like that. We should look at it in the case of the victims. And one episode that I think really did this well, and is easily the best episode of the entire show, was Silence. This is the 6th episode. I believe it's the highest rated on IMDb too, and for good reason. We see one of the victims here, and we see it from his perspective. For pretty much the whole other part of the series, we see everything from Dahmer's perspective. Dahmer picking up the person, Dahmer taking them back, and whatever events unfold. We never see the full background of these characters until episode 6. You know, we get a little bit of a background on Tracy Edwards in the first episode, and I think that was also going off track here. That's also something that I thought was interesting how they did that. They didn't go in chronological order. The first episode was the end to everything, and then episode 2 really starts off with the beginning parts and building and kind of growing back in that chronological order. But yeah, back to the episode Silence here. This was such a heartbreaking episode, one of the hardest ones to watch. It was a really well done episode, because this episode we see one of his victims, Tony, and Tony is deaf. And in this case, you see Tony, and he's so likable, and you love to see him. He is such a great personality. You know, he's cares for his family, and you just love this guy. You see this guy on screen, and you just can't help but feel great for him. He is a really great character, and we just see everything get taken away. We see how he eventually meets Dahmer, and you know it's not going to end well, and you're just like, no, no. And they do a really great job in this episode as well. Like I said, that Tony is deaf, and in a lot of the scenes they have no noise. They have it programmed to like if you were deaf yourself, and it really makes you feel like you're in the shoes of that character here, not being able to hear. And they do a really great job with that episode. And just the ending scene, you know, Jeffrey consuming him at the end and cooking him, and it's like, wow, like your mind is just, it's so rattled because you knew the outcome once they got introduced to each other, but it's like you just want to prevent it happening so much. And that episode was so well done. It was probably 10 out of 10, I would say. Only 10 out of 10 episode. I also really liked the finale episode. I think they did a really great job with that. And I also really like the neighbor. I know that the neighbor, Glenda, was not someone who was actually there for most of it. You know, she is a part of the story in real life, but she was never someone who was the direct neighbor and complaining all the time. But I think they did a really great job of sympathizing with her because, you know, we see it from her perspective, how she's being ignored, and it's just so sad to see, and you feel so bad for her because she's in the right this entire time, and no one will just stand up for her and give her justice, and it's really heartbreaking in that way. So like I said, just a lot of just high emotions run through this entire series. And the first couple episodes I actually thought were a little bit slow. Like the first three, it definitely took a little bit to get into it, but once I hit about episode 5, it really picked up. Episode 5 and really picked up the pace. Episode 6 just absolutely blew me away, and then it pretty much carried out strong throughout the rest. So, I mean, those are the main thoughts on Dahmer here. Like I say, it basically, of course, follows the life of Jeffrey, as many of you have seen, and it was just really emotional for me. And I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Like, what were your thoughts and feelings as you were watching Dahmer here? So that's pretty much the thoughts on Dahmer. Now, for one show recommendation here, this is actually one that I've done a video on, and I recommended Dahmer for that one as well, and that's Mindhunter. That one follows, of course, the serial killers and find out how their brain works and stuff, and that's something that they talk about in Dahmer at the very end, when Dahmer, of course, is killed in prison. They talk about whether they want to do research on his brain and see if he was born this way, what made him this way, was there something inside his brain that led to him being the way that he is. And Mindhunter really takes that idea and uses it in research and talks with all these different serial killers. I think you would really like Mindhunter if you like Dahmer. And for the tier rating for Dahmer, I'm going to put it in the great tier. I don't think it's like the best documentary or miniseries of all time, like in a GOAT tier or an elite tier, but and I always really think that TV miniseries have a tough time of getting to those levels just because they don't really have the time to develop. But I think it's a great tier. Something similar that I would compare it to, like on quality wise, is like We Own the City. I think We Own the City is like a bordering great show, and this one is solidly in the great tier. I think it really picked up in the later half and just really makes you feel crazy, and it's talked about all over the internet right now, and the craze is going wild on Netflix for it. So yeah, that's going to do it here for the Dahmer review. Check out this playlist here with my other TV series reviews, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button as well. Take care, everyone, and peace out.